Welcome to New Society, and I am your host, Carlo Jean-Michel. For those of you that are new, welcome. For those of you that are coming back, welcome back. I don't know that I've given my past on this channel, but essentially I have a bachelor's degree in psychology and sociology, and I have years of experience working with troubled youth and their families, providing rehabilitation counseling. Back in 2021, I launched my own life coaching practice where I provide life coaching support. To how I explain it, I provide support to people learning how to be the new version of who they used to be. And today, jumping right in, we are talking about a conversation that I just had a few moments ago with one of my homegirls. She was going through something, and you know how it is when you have big life decisions to make, whether it's where you're going to college, whether it's where you're getting a job, whether it's who you're dating, whether it's who you're gonna marry, whether it's where you're gonna live. And I feel like we get caught in this cacophony of who we're trying to satisfy within that decision, essentially. And I said to her, do you know who you need to satisfy? I said, deathbed you. That's who. And she said, ooh, I love that. And I go, right? Because I've been saying the same thing to myself for a while, I feel like, but I definitely said it to myself, I want to say about 2 or 3 nights ago, as a reminder. It was like, calm down. There are all these people that you're trying to satisfy, and you don't owe anything to any of them. Any of them. Except you. And then I said, except deathbed you. Like, so I always forget that not everybody took psychology, but Psych 101 basically says, I believe it is, I took human development course, and the final stage of life is old age and dying. And what it is essentially it's a life review. You go through your entire life and you basically relive every moment, every experience. You consider your legacy, the legacy that you're leaving behind, and the imprint, honestly, your mark that you're leaving on the world. And one of my friends posted a story a couple of weeks ago that said, or maybe it was months ago now, I don't know, but it said, die while you're still alive. Essentially discussing the ego death and how that works. And essentially, that's what you're doing. The final stage of life, which is old age and dying, it's a life review in the sense of what are you leaving behind? What's your legacy? What's your mark? All those interactions, all those people that you interacted with, how are you leaving those moments? Like, what's the energetic imprint of that? Do you know what I mean? And that's really where that's where that final stage lives. And this whole concept of dying while you're still alive, to me, it implies that doesn't have to happen on your deathbed. It can happen long before that. In fact, like my friend, I prefer that simply because you have an opportunity to do something about it. Because when you're on your deathbed, all you're doing is thinking about your legacy, thinking about your life, thinking about those choices, what you did do, what you didn't do, what you wish you did differently. If you could go back, how would you do it? And what we're discussing is exactly that. Like, what do you want? Like, what do you want to leave behind? Because it's gonna happen. If you take the reins and do something about it while you still can, while those people are still here. I lost both of my aunts really young. The first one, mentally and emotionally, I was way too young to process it. The second one, I wasn't that much older for all intents and purposes, but it left more of an impact, which was basically it can happen at any moment. And we all know that. We all know this. We know that it can happen at any moment. We know that life is fragile. We know that Any person that we know and love can be gone in the blink of an eye, yet we don't do anything about it. When that happened to me with my aunt, I now do something about it. Every single person that I've ever spoken with, let me rephrase, probably in the last decade, if I've spoken to you, you know exactly how I feel about you. I'd like to say before that, but this is, for all intents and purposes, I let's just say the 10-year mark. But I adopted the "it's good to see you" with every single person that I talk to, but it's because I mean it. We all know what struggle is like. We all know when we don't talk about it. We all know that we all have our struggles. And I think it's an homage to that kind of, like, hey, regardless of what's going on that I know nothing about, that most people know nothing about, you're still here. And it's really good to see you. That's all it means. And I mean that. And then I just kind of lean into that more and just, I feel like I've always been the kind of person to highlight what I admire or value or notice about a person. And I think it all started because you know how it is when you're a kid and it sucks because everyone has something to say about you and everyone's way too confident to not share it, and you don't know any better. At least I didn't. I was defenseless, and I was not insecure. I was vulnerable. I was a child, and I was impressionable, and I was sensitive, like all children are. I feel like it's abnormal to be insensitive than it is to be sensitive. Anyway, where am I going with this? Where am I? The ultimate point of this entire rant, essentially, is make deathbed you happy. If there are people in your life and you know they're not going to be here one day, own that. Honor that. Leave things on a good note. Don't criticize, compliment. I mean, if there's an issue, bring up the issue, but for the most part, we don't have to be jerks. And I feel like we're all way too comfortable with being jerks. As far as I'm concerned, that's where we got it wrong. At some point, we all way too many of us became way too comfortable with being jerks. We don't like when people are jerks to us. How is it that we're able to justify doing that to other people? It makes no sense to me. None. Anyway, I'm going to conclude here because I can do this all night. And I have the videos to prove it. As always, take what works and leave what doesn't. This is your story and no one else's. This is a channel where I discuss exactly that. The world is a completely different place. It's not the same anymore, which is why this podcast is called New Society. So in this new society, I encourage you to live life on your terms, wisely. Doesn't mean do what you want when you want to do it. I mean, at the end of the day, if that's your choice, that is your choice. If that's what you choose to do, so be it. However, I recommend finding a balance. I recommend doing right by you. Doing right by the you that you're going to have to answer to at some point anyway. If you're fortunate enough to do that before it gets dire, then congratulations, I hope so. But this is meant to serve you, not to serve the you that you think would make people the proudest, not to serve the person that you want to make the proudest, not to serve the person that you think you're supposed to be, and not the person that your trauma response has you walking around as today. Be the person that you actually are. And if you don't remember, what would it take for you to find out again? You're gonna be here no matter what. You might as well enjoy it, in my opinion. There's a whole other thing that I was gonna say that was gonna make me really sad, so I'm not gonna say it. But with that said, thank you for tuning in. Hope to see you again soon. Once again, you've been listening to New Society, and I have been your host, Carlo Jean-Michel. Take care of yourselves. Talk soon.